Is Yair Robinson. I am blessed to be the rabbi here at Congregation Beth Emeth, and it is my pleasure to be able to welcome you to this year's Candidate Forum, normally held at the Siegel JCC, and we are sorry for their technical difficulties and hope they are able to recover from them soon. But in the meantime, we are glad to be able to be helpful to Jewish Federation of Delaware and to Hadassah. We are taught in our tradition that we should not separate ourselves from the community. And so in this moment, not only are we not separating ourselves, but we are reinforcing our sense of community as we welcome Jewish Federation of Delaware and our JCRC, Hadassah, our wonderful candidates who are here, who are invested in our community, and of course, all those who are participating tonight, whether you're here in this space or participating online. And we know that by engaging in this work, by participating in this, which is among the best things that our JCRC really does, that we are able to have a civil discourse about our civics, that we're able to engage in difficult questions, all of us recognizing that regardless of what position we might hold, what political stand we might have, or values we may have, all of us are invested in our community being the best it possibly can be. With that, it is my pleasure to turn things over to Josh Schoenberg, the chair of our Jewish Community Relations Council, our JCRC.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good evening. Again, my name is Josh Schoenberg. I'm the chair of the Jewish Community Relations Council, JCRC. On behalf of the Jewish Federation of Delaware, I'm happy to welcome you to our 2022 Candidates Forum. Traditionally held on the first Thursday after the state primary, this forum has been a unique opportunity for our community to engage with the statewide general election candidates. The mission of the Jewish Federation of Delaware is to mobilize the Jewish community to address issues, meet needs, and build an agenda for the future. Federation brings Jewish people together in a community coalition which is grounded in Jewish teachings and heritage. Together, we strengthen the State of Israel, the global Jewish family, and local organizations to further the survival of the Jewish people. Thank you to our Jewish Federation of Delaware President Russ Silberglied, CEO Seth Katzen, and JCRC Director Rabbi Ellen Bernhardt for all you do on behalf of the Jewish people every day. Thank you to Michael Sigmund, as always, for moderating this event. Thank you to Nicole Terranova and the entire Jewish Federation of Delaware staff for their tireless work to make this Candidates Forum a success. Thank you to the Wilmington chapter of Hadassah for partnering with us again this year on this important program. Thank you to Congregation Beth Emeth, Rabbi Yair Robinson, and your entire staff for willing to host us on this short notice. And please join me as we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Sue Rohrbacher, an officer with Wilmington Chapter of Hadassah, co-sponsor of this Candidates Forum.
Thank you, Josh. Let me add my welcome to all of you, and thank you for being here. I am one of the 4-member presidium leading our local Hadassah chapter this year, along with Sylvia Wagman, Arlene Eckel, and Susie Grumbacher. We are so pleased to once again partner with Federation in this program. One of Hadassah's ongoing efforts involves education, so this program is near and dear to our hearts. What is Hadassah? We are an engaged, connected community of men and women, 300,000 strong, the nation's largest Jewish women's organization. For over 100 years, Hadassah has worked proactively to find and implement solutions to some of the most pressing problems facing each generation. Together, we're advancing women's health, supporting a strong Israel, and instilling Jewish values in future generations. We're healing the world through our hospitals in Israel that treat 1 million people a year, regardless of race, religion, or nationality. Thanks to the medical system in Israel, we help create new treatments and scientific breakthroughs that are saving lives around the world. We're nurturing at-risk youth. More than 300,000 students from 80 lands have graduated from Youth Aliyah since 1934. We're helping women find their voices to advance health equity and fighting hate and anti-Semitism in the U.S. We do this and so much more. We invite you to join us in our mission. And now to switch gears, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for tonight. Michael Sigmund is making his 8th consecutive volunteer appearance. Michael is a presentation and media skills coach. In addition to his work with some of the largest companies in the world, Michael counsels several nonprofit agencies. He is a member of the Jewish Living Delaware Committee and is chair of Congregation Beth Shalom Centennial Observance. Michael is a board member of Delaware Public Media, which is dedicated to local news reporting and features national public radio programming in Delaware. Michael became known to many of you, and perhaps some of the candidates on stage, as the anchor and news director of Delaware's Channel 2 First State News. He was also the primetime evening news anchor for TSM News, news producer at WHYY TV 12, and an anchor and reporter at WILM News Radio. It is my pleasure to welcome back Michael Sigmund.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for that kind introduction, Sue. I appreciate it. I also want to thank Josh Schoenberg for your comments, and thank you, Rabbi Robinson, for being our host tonight. It has been another 2 years, and as I always like to say, all of you look the same. But what's even funnier about that line this year is 2 years ago, I didn't even see you. Because unfortunately we had to do everything remotely, but nothing stands in the way of this forum. So if it's any, here's a consolation. It was 4 years ago since I saw you in person, and you still look the same, and you look terrific. So thank you very much for being here. This is I also want to thank everyone, the candidates included, and all of your folks for your flexibility. We want to do everything that's possible this year to keep you safe and air-conditioned. So thank you, Beth Emeth, for making sure we were able to do that. This is a very special evening. It's an opportunity to express and hear views, as Rabbi Robinson said, in a civil way. There are usually some very significant policy disagreements. You'll hear them tonight. But they are delivered in a way that is truly helpful for you, the voters. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight to listen, to learn, and to question the people who are seeking your votes this fall. A special thank you and congratulations to the candidates. One of the nice things about being 2 days after the primary is we get to be one of the first people to congratulate you. So congratulations on primary victories and for being here with us. I know it's very valuable campaigning time, so thank you for being here. First, some ground rules for tonight. This event has always run smoothly because of the superior communication with the candidates. All the campaigns received and agreed to the guidelines, but I think it's important to highlight a few of those ground rules for you tonight. All qualifying candidates or their designated representative will deliver an opening statement. It has a 3-minute time limit. The closing statement is limited to 2 minutes. The order of the opening and closing statements was determined by a series of coin tosses prior to the start of this evening's program. Some of you may have seen some of that taking place out there in the hallway. The period in between the opening and the closing statements, well, that's about questions. It's about your questions. And we'll let you know how that works right now. Only questions submitted on cards by those attending this program or questions from me will be used in tonight's program. Please put your questions on the cards that are going to be submitted to you by the runners. Can we see some of the runners who are going to see them waving at you? They have some cards that they'll make sure that you get if you want to write your questions there. Once you have finished it, just hold your hand up and the runner will make sure that they get your questions. There will be an effort to include as many questions as possible tonight. We should have about an hour of questioning in between the opening and closing statements, which is really terrific. Questions may be directed to individual candidates or to all the candidates for that position, and as is our usual practice, we give the opposing candidate equal time to respond. We know that a minute to respond to a question is not ideal, but it allows us to cover more topics tonight, and I'm sure we can all appreciate that. As the moderator, I have the discretion to continue with a theme and ask follow-up questions, and of course, I will always allow the opposing candidate to respond to that as well. I'd like to give some words about timing. Candidate responses are carefully timed, as they must be in order to be fair to everyone. So I ask that the candidates pay close attention to Laura sitting right here in the front. You have a great seat. And she, of course, has the timing cards for you. Please know where Laura is. Keep track of your timing. I would prefer candidates not to interrupt you. That way, or force a microphone to be shut off or anything embarrassing like that. The whole point is we want to concentrate on the topics and not concentrate on the timing. The goal is to have a great, informative evening and end the program on time, which was promised to all of the campaigns. The candidates are going to be opening and delivering their opening statements in federal to state descending order, but I do want to ask something, and I apologize, and I really hope that I'm not embarrassing anyone. The podium here is really just for the moderator and for the candidates. May I ask the other members here to please take seats in the audience? Is that all right? I'm sorry, I really would like the podium here just for the candidates. It's an unfair situation. I'm sorry for that awkward situation. Thank you very much. We'll start with the opening statements from, again, U.S. Representative first, then Attorney General, then Treasurer, and then Auditor of Accounts in that order. And we turn now to the first group, which is the candidates for Congress. And we're going to, now I do want to point out that Lisa Blunt Rochester, our Congresswoman, is in Washington tonight with casting votes, and that's why she can't be here in person. But Nick Fulcino from her office will be delivering the first opening statement. After that, it will be Cody McNutt and then Lee Murphy. So, Nick, you have 3 minutes. Please keep an eye on Laura, of course.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Fulcino. I'm Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester's Deputy Campaign Manager. Unfortunately, she's voting in Washington and couldn't be here tonight, but she wrote the following letter that I would like to read on her behalf. I want to start by thanking the Jewish Federation of Delaware and the Wilmington chapter of Hadassah for planning this candidate forum. I apologize I have to miss this year's event, but I'm in D.C. today as Congress is in session and we're voting. Lately, I have been thinking and reflecting on these last 2 years. We all know about the low points, the riot at the Capitol on January 6th that threatened our democracy, a threat that persists and demands that we remain vigilant. Mass shootings at our schools that have become all too common, anti-Semitic violence at a record high. It is easy to look at the magnitude of our challenges and wonder what we can do to make things better. I believe that all of us, and particularly those of you in this room, have been called for a time such as this. I want to play a role akin to that in the book of the great Hebrew prophet Isaiah as a repairer of the breach. That means working every day to bring together Republicans and Democrats to get things done for the people of Delaware. It is an honor to be rated as one of the most bipartisan members of Congress, and I will continue my work delivering for Delaware if you re-elect me to Congress in November. Over the last 2 years, I am proud of all the things we've accomplished. I have helped lead efforts in Congress to make generational investments in our infrastructure and fix our broken supply chains and bring manufacturing jobs back to America, all with overwhelming support from both Democrats and Republicans. I've worked with people on both sides of the aisle to help protect seniors and give them the dignity they deserve, from finally allowing Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices for seniors to enacting laws protecting them from fraud and scams. I'm also leading efforts to protect Delaware from the effects of climate change and promote clean drinking water for all of the communities in our state. I promise to continue fighting every day for the people of Delaware and this country. Before closing, I do have to address one of the most pressing issues facing this country: the rights of women to make decisions about their bodies. While I will work with anyone willing to improve people's lives, I will always stand up to those people, including my Republican opponent, who would take away women's freedom to choose what is best for them. Let me be very clear, the stakes in this election are high. Delaware, it has been the honor of my life to serve you in Congress, and I can't wait to work together to accomplish even more. I humbly ask for your support this November and look forward to seeing and working with everyone soon. Thank you, Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester.
Thank you, Mr. Fulcino. Appreciate that very much. The next opening statement comes from Cody McNutt, the Libertarian candidate for U.S. Representative. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Cody McNutt. I'm running for Delaware's representative in Congress. I have served in the hospitality profession in Delaware since 2010. I'm sorry. I've served in the hospitality industry in Delaware since 2010, and I have led others in the restaurant industry since 2020. During my career, I've come to know my fellow Delawareans quite well, learning about their lives and their interests and their families and their struggles along the way. It is their stories that drive my platform to bring good jobs back to Delaware and secure our liberties and freedoms for future Americans. I have served my community with organizations such as the Sunday Breakfast Mission and the Middletown Big Ball Marathon. And as an avid outdoorsman and an environmentalist, I had the privilege of living in and working in the Grand Canyon National Park for a year. As the candidate of liberty and freedom, all of my policies stem from that very principle, and I hope that people here today can share that same value. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNutt. The next opening statement comes from Lee Murphy, the Republican candidate for U.S. Representative. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Michael for hosting tonight, and the Jewish Federation of Delaware, and Hadassah for this forum here this evening. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here. You know, it seems like every 2 years we face the most important election of our lifetimes. And it is, but it's more than that. The people of Delaware are voting as if the future of our country is at stake, because it is. I don't need to remind you that the role of Congress is to debate and vote on legislation. And yet your Congresswoman turned the other way when the president unilaterally approved billions of dollars to do away with student loan debt. How unpopular does an idea have to be that you can't even get your own party to debate it and pass it in Congress? Will we have a representative of Delaware that addresses the problems of the people here in Delaware? Or will we have a representative that goes to Washington, D.C. and votes to spend trillions of dollars in inflationary spending that hurts all Delaware families? Will we have a representative from Delaware that represents us? Or will we have one that votes with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time? Hey, I won't vote with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. I won't even vote with a Republican speaker 100% of the time. I will represent the people of Delaware, fighting to lower spending, to rein in inflation, to secure the southern border, to lower crime. The southern border, fentanyl coming across the border, killing our youth. We have to stop it. I will support education, not indoctrination. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what this election is about. Addressing your challenges and being accountable to you, the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, candidates for U.S. Representative. I do want to point out that that's not a bad idea to do any applause that you'd like to do after all the candidates are done. Please understand that because the candidates have their answers and their comments timed, if you interrupt with the applause, it takes away from their time. So thank you very much. Time now for opening statements from the candidates for Attorney General. The first opening statement comes from Kathleen Jennings, the Democratic candidate and the incumbent Attorney General.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Kathy Jennings, and I am your Attorney General. Thank you to Hadassah Congregation Beth Emeth and the Jewish Federation of Delaware for sponsoring and hosting this forum this evening. Like some of you, I was raised in Wilmington. I was raised by a single mom who taught me that when you see a problem, you don't sit down and wait for someone else to solve that problem. You take action and you stand up. That's why, after decades of experience as a prosecutor in the Department of Justice and in private practice, I stepped up and ran to be your Attorney General. Serving in this office has been the singular privilege of a lifetime, and I am so proud of what we have accomplished. We brought violent crime down by securing an 85% conviction rate in gun cases and fighting to fix our broken bail laws. We've secured thousands of years in prison against violent gun offenders. We have gone after gun traffickers, and we took on the gun lobby to pass the most significant gun safety bills in Delaware's history. I have fought to protect our children, increased penalties against child predators, secured life sentences against pedophiles and child abusers. For the first time ever, I have taken on human trafficking. I have taken on hate crimes, and I have taken on criminal corruption, including in my own party. I took on big pharma and corporate polluters, securing nearly $250 million for our state. I fought to protect our elections, including defeating the Delaware GOP's attempt to destroy 80,000 votes lawfully in this state, and continuing that fight as my opponent actively fights to make it harder to vote. I worked with the police to put body-worn cameras on every police officer in this state, and I fought to protect a woman's right to choose by challenging anti-choice laws, securing free legal help for women in our state, seeking abortions, and even taking a town in our state to court for anti-abortion law. I don't take this job lightly. Being Attorney General requires sound legal judgment and experience. I am the only candidate with that experience, and with your support, I will bring that experience into a second term because our work continues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next opening statement for candidate for Attorney General comes from Julianne Murray, the Republican candidate.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Perfect. It's helpful to hold the microphone. Don't start timing yet. I had to make sure I was heard. All right. Thanks to the Jewish Federation of Delaware and Hadassah for hosting this year's candidate forum. My name is Julianne Murray, and I am running against Kathleen Jennings for Attorney General of Delaware. I am an attorney and managing partner of the law firm of Murray, Phillips & Gay. For those that want my full biography, I encourage you to check out my campaign website at murrayfordelaware.com or my law firm website at murrayphillipslaw.com. to get more information on my background. Because time is so precious, I want to jump right into the guts of this very important race. As a starting point, I would argue that the Attorney General has the ability to affect your day-to-day lives more than any other state office, including governor. The Attorney General sets the tone for law enforcement and should work hand in hand with law enforcement. The Attorney General's office prosecutes criminals and ensures that Delawareans are safe in their neighborhoods. While there are many, many other things that the Attorney General does, I would argue that this particular race is about public safety, crime, and guns. The fact of the matter is, we are not safer than we were 4 years ago. I talk to Delawareans every day that say they are concerned about their safety and the safety of their children. The fact of the matter is that crime has increased exponentially since my opponent took office. While it is hard to get the actual statistics, if you asked a person on the street if crime is on the rise, you are going to get an absolute yes. The fact of the matter is that criminals are emboldened here in Delaware because they know the charges are going to be dropped or reduced to no jail time. This has been confirmed by law enforcement here in Delaware. They are rearresting the same defendant multiple times and actually have criminals mock them as they're making an arrest because the criminals know they aren't going to jail. The fact of the matter is that approximately 85% of 2 serious gun charges were dropped in 2019, 2020, and 2021. I know that Ms. Jennings is going to dispute this number, say it's false, it's taken out of context. I assure you the numbers are real. We have a handout at my campaign table that gives you the raw data. I'm opening with these points because I want to make it clear to everyone that I expect there's going to be questions tonight that focus on issues other than public safety, crime, and guns, and I'm going to submit that there shouldn't be. I'm going to keep bringing the conversation back to this. I am laser focused on making Delaware safer. Finally, I hope I'm wrong, but if there are questions that are political and divisive in nature, I'm not going to engage. Delawareans deserve better. They deserve a candidate that will not politicize the office and will treat the office as apolitical and nonpartisan. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, or unaffiliated. Race, religion, age, ethnicity don't matter. We're all Delawareans and want our streets and neighborhoods to be safe. We want our children to be sheltered. In the hierarchy of needs, safety is first.
Thank you.
Period.
Just a couple of things, a couple of announcements that I neglected to make. If you have a cell phone, would you kindly just, turn it, put it off or make sure it's silent, because I don't think any of the candidates would appreciate that going off while they're in the middle of their talk. Thank you. We now turn our opening statements over to the candidates for state treasurer. The first opening statement comes from Colleen Davis, the Democrat, and our state treasurer.
Thank you. I'd like to start just by thanking the Wilmington chapter of Hadassah, the Jewish Community Relationship Committee of the Jewish Federation of Delaware, Rabbi Ellen Bernhard, Rabbi Robinson, Siegel JCC, and the congregation of Beth Emeth for graciously hosting us. I know you all are preparing for high holidays, and shalom, and thank you so much. I'm Colleen Davis. I'm your state treasurer. I'm also a wife, a mother of 3, a sister to 8, and a daughter to 2 small business owners in Sussex County. I grew up in Sussex County, and we didn't have a lot, but we learned to be fiscally responsible and to appreciate the value of a community. Again, coming up in Sussex County, I saw so many folks that struggled to make ends meet. As a financial consultant in the healthcare industry, I also saw the collapse of small practices as physicians struggled to provide and make ends meet for their patients. These values are what inspired me 4 years ago to run for state treasurer, to bring back and instill the value of our communities, to ensure that individuals all receive the opportunity to be empowered financially. As state treasurer, I work very hard to uphold my oath of office, to always place the public interests above any special or personal interests. And in just 4 years, I have improved the financial landscape for Delawareans through my overarching priorities. As your state treasurer, I am asked to protect and safeguard your tax dollars, and I have a proven record of achievements. Over the last 4 years, we have accomplished much, and we are helping everyday Delawareans to achieve economic stability, to give them a fighting chance for a more secure future through financial empowerment, personal finance, strength, by creating pathways to economic stability, and promoting a culture of financial excellence. Our financial future is built on our ability to trust those managing our resources. Myself and my team of highly qualified, thoughtful, and compassionate professionals are ensuring those resources are always working for Delaware's families. Thank you.
The next opening statement comes from Republican Greg Coverdale.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Greg Coverdale, your next state treasurer. Thank you. People always want to use a cute little catchphrase that they're for Main Street over Wall Street. Look, there was no direct path to Wall Street from many of our neighborhoods. Those of us who found our way to Wall Street had to create a path. My entire career has been spent sharing my financial education with all people, from serving on the State Board of Education so that our children can learn financial literacy in school, to helping the young mother who serves in the Delaware National Guard to keep her from homelessness and make sure she has enough food to feed her family and herself, to mentoring the young man who is a college senior at DSU and is working hard towards a career on Wall Street. Growing up on Main Street wasn't easy then, and it's just as hard now. Gas is high, groceries are high, everything is inflated, and unfortunately, my opponent doesn't want to admit that we're in a recession. At the College of Business at Delaware State University, we teach that it's 2 negative quarters of gross domestic product. Maybe my opponent learned a different definition. I was blessed to find my way to Wall Street by way of Route 13, which led directly through Delaware State University. It was a rewarding experience to provide financial planning services to clients at Morgan Stanley as well as Merrill Lynch through using stocks and bonds. However, maintaining the bonds that were built with the members of the communities where I was raised has always been important to me. I still have those bonds, and I know that people are hurting financially on Newcastle Avenue, on Concord Avenue, and on Market Street because I invest there and I also care about the people who live there. One of my tenants came to me and said, "Mr. Coverdale, I haven't been working consistently. The church is helping me with my rent. Would you work with me?" And I said, "Absolutely, sir." And we figured out a plan that was mutually beneficial. And that is what I will do as your next state treasurer. I will say, "Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, ma'am." And we will work on a plan to get us out of this mess that we're in. This race isn't about a woman versus a man. It's not about Main Street versus Wall Street. This race is about having the most qualified person in the office leading us out of this recession that we're all experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates for State Treasurer. Our next opening statements come from the candidates for Auditor of Accounts. We first go to Janice Laura, the Republican, for Auditor of Accounts.
Thank you. Thank you to our host, moderators, the attendees, And thank you for the Delaware voters for being so engaged in this election. For too long, we've seen our elected officials put politics over progress. What's in their best interest over what's in your best interest. I believe we need to put people over politics. Now more than ever, Delaware needs an independent watchdog working to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of Delaware's government, working to stop corruption and eliminate wasteful spending. I am competent, experienced, and uniquely qualified to serve as Delaware's state auditor. I'm the product of public education, and I'm proud to be the daughter of a public school teacher. I have a 7-year-old who I will always stand up for because I know that children are our future. As an attorney for 20 years who is certified in forensic accounting, I understand how to ask the right questions and how to look in the right places to expose waste and root out fraud. In my law practice, when financial irregularities disqualify senior citizens from receiving benefits, I review financial statements and follow the money until I find answers. Were the expenditures legitimate, or was the individual a victim of fraud? I check the books and find the crooks. Having been a small business owner, I understand the value of a dollar and the importance of not wasting or mismanaging money. I've clipped coupons and fished under my sofa cushions for coins to buy gas. As a supervisor, I know how to manage a professional team where everyone is respected and people are given the tools to get the job done. As auditor, I will provide timely, fact-based, nonpartisan information that can be used to improve government and save taxpayer dollars. Return the office back to the people by performing the required audits and not use the office to further a political agenda. I will bring checks and balances on Delaware's spending. This is your money we're talking about. I have a proven track record for tackling tough issues and standing up when government oversteps. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. This election, the time for politics as usual is over. It's time for checks and balances that put the people of the first state first. Thank you again for having me. I look forward to your questions, and I look forward to you getting to know me a little better as I work for your vote.
Our next opening statement comes from Lydia York, the Democrat candidate for Auditor of Accounts.
Good evening. My name is Lydia York. I'm a Democratic candidate for State Auditor. I just want to tell you a little bit about my background. I'm a CPA. I went to the Wharton School. I have an MBA, but I'm currently practicing law here in Delaware in Pike Creek, where I practice in elder law, estates, and trusts. For quite some time, the people who wrote this Constitution that we work under had a vision for how this office ought to work. And for quite some time, it hasn't actually worked in that way. I'd like to actually bring this office back into its statutory requirements to do things. And one of the things that I think most urgently needs to be done is the audits of our school districts. I think that it's important that this office function in that way because it hasn't functioned for quite some time, and it's really important that you support me in this campaign. A little bit more about my background, because I feel like I'm still explaining myself to folks. I think it's, I live in Pike Creek. I have been here for over 25 years, but I hadn't really been paying attention to exactly what was going on in this office because we never heard about it. But when I did start paying attention to it as a professional curiosity, I found out that we really just weren't doing what was supposed to happen. I am running to actually bring some management stability to this office after its recent distractions, and I think I've got the technical background to work with this. Professionally, I've worked in public accounting, I've been an accounting supervisor, I've worked in a larger corporation, in finance and in financial management. I think it's time for Delawareans, for this office to fulfill its constitutional mandates, its statutory requirements. Thank you very much.
I want to thank all the candidates for their opening statements. I especially want to thank you for sticking to the time limits. And I hope we can continue that effort tonight because we're going to go to your questions. Thanks, folks, for filling out your question forms. More of them are coming up to me. If you have more, just hold them up, and our runners will come and get them from you. Thank you. Well, the first question that was handed to me, I think, is going to be important for members of Congress, but also it'll be for representatives, for candidates for Congress, but it's also going to be important for the Attorney General candidates. It is, if you could spend more time clarifying or talking about your position on a woman's right to choose. And I'm going to do my best, by the way, to bounce back and forth to allow different candidates a first shot at it or a second shot at it. So I'll do my best. So let's first start off with Lee Murphy, if you don't mind. The question again, what is your position on a woman's right to choose?
Yes, I think the Supreme Court made the correct decision when they returned this important decision back to the states. Constitutionally, this issue should be determined by the states. And the reason I think it's a great idea and it should be in the states is that this is an issue for individual states, for representatives of that state, along with their citizens, to make this important decision. You know, personally, I am pro-life, but here in Delaware, abortion is a protected right. If you want to change things, if you're not happy with the status quo, you change the people who represent you in the state legislature.
All right, thank you. The next response comes from Cody McNutt. You have 1 minute.
Yes, can you repeat the question in full, please?
What is your position on a woman's right to choose?
I tend to agree with Mr. Murphy that it is a decision that should be in the hands of the states. I do not personally believe that any state actor should have any control over somebody's medical procedures. There is no other medical circumstance where one is required to give up one's own body for the sake of another, and my belief in this continues through that.
All right, thank you. Before we... Thank you for being patient on the applause, and I'll try not to cut you off. Before we get to the candidates for Attorney General, I think it's only fitting that we discuss Lindsey Graham's bill. As you are aware, Lindsey Graham introduced legislation to ban abortions after 15 weeks and that it would be nationwide. And he's very much aware that it's not going to be coming up in this particular Congress, but he says if the Congress changes hands, it will turn to a vote. So let me go back again to Lee Murphy. Do you support Lindsey Graham's bill?
Well, let's go back to what I just earlier said. This issue needs to be decided in the states. One size does not fit all concerning the abortion issue. Here in Delaware, as I said, it's a protected right. In some other states, they might feel differently. I think the protection that the people of Delaware have on this issue, if it was a national right, protected right, I think the issue should belong with the states, not a national issue. The Supreme Court made the right decision, returning it to the states.
Okay, Mr. McNutt, you have an opportunity if you'd like.
This is not a bill that I can support. This would overstep federal boundaries in regards to our personal lives. Our lives are in our hands, not in the federal government's. I will not support any bill that does anything like that.
Thank you very much. As promised now, I'm going to ask the same question of the candidates for Attorney General. First, Kathleen Jennings. And the question again from the questioner here is, where do you stand on protecting access to abortion rights here in Delaware?
I believe now, I have always believed that women should have a right to access abortion in accordance with the decision of Roe v. Wade. I believe, and my record supports it, that women in Delaware, the state where I am your Attorney General, I vow to protect your right to choose. My opponent's record is also clear. She opposes abortion even in cases of rape. I have supported and fought for abortion rights in this state, and I will continue to do so. I got a helpline open that will give women free legal advice on their rights in Delaware, and I have fought against anti-abortion laws when the town of Seaford tried to pass one. And I have been successful, and I will never back down as your Attorney General.
Thank you. The next response, thank you. The next response comes from Julianne Murray.
Yes, I knew this question was coming. And as a starting point, I really don't believe this. It's an important question, but I don't believe that it belongs in an Attorney General race. The job of the Attorney General is to enforce the law. It's not a policy decision. From a legal standpoint, I think the Supreme Court got it right. This is a state issue and is governed by state law. I would not support Lindsey Graham's bill. I think that it has no business being in the federal purview. I do think that we need to, it's interesting to hear that in cases of rape, that my record is clear. I am pro-life. I respect that other people have choices, but this job and this race is absolutely, remember, public safety, crime, and guns. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to make sure that we get to all the candidates, the next question goes to the candidates for Auditor of Accounts. And so the question is, should the state auditor have subpoena power and arrest powers to fully ensure audits are done timely, accurately, and those who do not comply face penalties for noncompliance? And we begin, first of all, with Lydia York.
The current statute allows for the Auditor of Accounts to subpoena information from folks who don't provide it in a timely fashion, and if they don't, the Auditor of Accounts has recourse to the Attorney General. With regard to what would happen after that, it would likely be in the hands of the Attorney General.
Okay. The next response, Janice Laura.
Thank you. So, sorry, could you repeat the question? It was subpoena power, arrest power, and what was the final?
Arrest power and to ensure that audits are, subpoena power and arrest powers to fully ensure audits are done timely, accurately, and those who do not comply face penalties for noncompliance.
Well, the timely and accurately, that is actually up to the auditor, and they should be the captain steering the ship to ensure that that's happening from the entities that are being audited. As far as subpoena power, that already exists in the statute, and as far as arrest power, that seems a little extreme, and again, that would be up to the legislature, and that doesn't seem like it would be something that would be within the purview of the auditor's office.
All right. Thank you very much. Next question to the candidates for U.S. Representative. Do you agree with the U.S. response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine? If not, what should have been done differently? And based on your answers, I may have a follow-up to that. Let's start off with Cody McNutt.
The largest military aid package was sent to Ukraine this year. That is not one of our, I'm sorry. That is not one of our treaty-bound allies. We should not be sending military aid to them. I do sympathize with their cause. However, sending our troops to another foreign war or sending our money to another foreign war is not acceptable.
Thank you. Lee Murphy, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I think we can all agree upon that we support the Ukrainian people. We're united in that belief. But let's look at this. What caused this conflict, besides our president inviting this incursion? It's our energy independence, ladies and gentlemen. We, once again, have to be energy independent in this country, use our oil, gas, and coal reserves. We were a net exporter of energy just 2 years ago. Once Russia, they're financing this war with their oil, selling it to Europe, selling it to the United States just a few months ago. We can turn off that spigot that finances this war and shut Russia down once we become energy independent again.
Thank you. Turning now to the candidates for state treasurer. Should the state treasurer be an independent elected office and not a gubernatorial appointment like a cabinet secretary? So should the state treasurer, does it need to be an elected office? And wow, I see Greg Coverdale wants to jump in on that one. So sat forward. So why don't you take the first shot at that? You have 1 minute.
That's an amazing question. That's a great question. I strongly believe that the state treasurer should be an appointed position. I think we should have certain educational and background parameters around the position. I think that, someone should go in and interview for this position just like they would any other corporate job at a bank as a CFO or any other top fiscal leader of an organization. I do not think the state treasurer should be a popularity contest. We need someone in the office that has the experience to manage our money. So this person should go through a rigorous process and be selected by professionals. Thank you.
Thank you. The next answer coming from Colleen Davis.
Thank you. I believe that the Treasurer's office is a representation of the population in Delaware. I believe that through extremely tumultuous times, as we faced a $255 million revenue shortfall at the outset of the pandemic, it was important that we had an eye and a focus on the individuals that I serve. I was elected by Delawareans, and I serve Delawareans. I ensured that, again, through that extremely tumultuous time, we maintained a AAA rating. We maintained the liquidity that was necessary to ensure that we paid our bills. We ensured that individuals had the finances to receive vaccinations, to receive COVID testing, and additional personal protective equipment.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, well, this question is going to go to all the candidates, if you don't mind. So I think it's important, the questioner would like all of you to respond to this. And we'll start off with the candidates for auditor and work our way down, if you'd like. So the question is, do you believe that Joe Biden is the fairly elected president of the United States? So let's begin with the candidates for auditor of accounts. Lydia York, would you start for us, please? Let's let the candidates address it, please. You have 1 minute.
Joe Biden is the duly elected president of the United States.
Okay. Janice Laura.
Joe Biden is our president.
Greg Coverdale.
Joe Biden is our president.
Colleen Davis.
I have an office that is full of amazingly dedicated public service members. And what happened questioning the election from individuals that have been dedicating their lives to serving nonpartisanly was a travesty. President Biden was our fairly elected and continues to be our fairly elected president.
Kathleen Jennings.
This one's easy. Joe Biden is the president of the United States because he was fully and fairly elected. I have fought against the lies that this was a false election. I have sued successfully against people who challenged this election in the Supreme Court of the United States, And I believe that our democracy is strong, and it is strong when we know the truth and when we uphold the truth. He is our president.
Thank you, Julianne Murray.
Joe Biden is the President of the United States. Here's what I will say, because I know it's going to be a follow-up question, and I get a minute. And that is, there were anomalies in the 2020 race, okay? Whether or not it met the legal standard here in Delaware, it did not, okay? We have to be very clear and focus on the 22 election, okay? 2020 happened. Focus on 22. I am absolutely a proponent of free and fair elections. And since I still have 30 seconds, I will comment on, in the opening, my opponent said that I am trying to hinder people's ability to vote, and that is absolutely not true. We challenged vote by mail because it is unconstitutional under the Delaware Constitution. And the Office of the Attorney General should be defending the Delaware Constitution.
Cody McNutt, do you still remember the question?
Yes. Joe Biden won the election in 2020. We spent 4 years in 2016 through 2020 listening to the same thing. Doing this again is a waste of time.
Thank you. But you still have time, Lee Murphy, so 1 minute. Is Joe Biden the President of the United States?
Certainly Joe Biden's the President of the United States, but there have been polls that both parties are really concerned about the integrity of the 2020 election. And the best way to ensure election integrity is to get involved, ladies and gentlemen, and to vote. This question is a distraction. We should be focusing on what's at hand, the 2022 election. There's more important issues to talk about than the 2020 election.
Well, I wasn't going to have a follow-up question, but now I think I have to, because I'm not the only one asking that question, and the question's being brought up by Republicans running for office, and a lot of the Republicans who won in their respective primaries recently were the ones who were election deniers. So I guess the question is, what message do you have for the party and people from both parties on this? So Lee Murphy, is there a message that can be sent from Republican leadership to put this issue to rest?
Again, what I just said is that the best way to ensure election integrity for Republicans and Democrats is to get involved, be involved. And the best way to ensure that is to come out and vote in 2022 and vote for Lee Murphy for United States Congress.
Thank you. Cody, your response, you have a minute.
I can guarantee that I will have nothing to do with any election and fraud investigations if elected to Congress. It's simply a waste of time, and we need to stop focusing on this, focusing on future elections, the ones coming up. The only way we're going to make change is by getting better people in.
Thank you. Well, speaking of lingering issues, we do have the issue of the search of Mar-a-Lago, and the question that has been that you hear from different sides is, please do not interrupt, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. That's what we're doing. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. The question is the search of Mar-a-Lago a witch hunt or a legitimate retrieval of documents that should have left the White House? Lee Murphy, you have a minute.
Good question, Michael. The current state of affairs as far as breaking into the former president's house is unsettled at this particular point. But this was an unprecedented act in the history of this country to have a former president's house broken into, especially when that president was working alongside the FBI to recover those documents. We do not have all the information yet, but this sets a bad precedent. When we have little faith in our government institutions, right now, the Department of Justice, the FBI, we have to once again have faith in these organizations, and that did little to establish faith in these institutions.
Okay. Cody McNutt?
Very little information has come out about what they were actually searching for. The only thing I can extrapolate from that is that this was a phishing operation to find something that they did not necessarily know what they were going to find. Witch hunt's a bad term to use there. I would use phishing operation.
Okay. Thank you. The next question is for the candidates for Attorney General, and it goes to both candidates, of course. We'll start off with Julianne Murray, which is the first candidate listed here. How do you intend to make Delaware safer?
Thank you to the person who asked that question. There's a lot that needs to happen. First and foremost is we need to be prosecuting more than we are. Again, I've spoken the statistics. I'm sure that my opponent will have a different spin on the statistics, but there are record number of charges being dismissed. I've talked to law enforcement in this state, and they are absolutely have lost faith that the arrests that they are making are going to result in prosecutions and people going to jail. So, prosecution. Number two, relationship with law enforcement. Again, it is broken. There's no confidence back and forth between law enforcement and my opponent. Those are two absolute pinnacle things that have to happen.
Thank you. The next response, Kathleen Jennings again. How do you intend to make Delaware safer?
We are making Delaware safer. The real statistics that come out, the real statistics are housed with the Delaware State Police. And it is not true that there are these drop gun charges and we aren't prosecuting cases. We are prosecuting cases to the fullest. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan famously said, "You are entitled to your own opinion. You are not entitled to your own facts." Gun shootings in the state of Delaware are down by 30%. In the city of Wilmington, gun homicides this year are down by 50%. These
please,
are
folks.
the police statistics.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's let the candidate finish, okay? Thank you. Ms. Jennings, please continue.
Yeah, I will. I'm just waiting for that to stop. So we work with the police each and every day, and we work with the police to lower gun violence. The work we're doing in Wilmington and Dover and throughout our state is working. Those statistics are real. They're from law enforcement, and we will continue to do that job.
This, and folks, please don't interrupt candidates. Let them finish. And again, you can show your applause at the end, but please let them finish. This question is now to the candidates for state treasurer. And this is someone who may know you, Mr. Coverdale. That says, Greg, as a landlord, how can you represent the plight of renters, especially who lost their homes, those who lost their homes? And there is a follow-up question for Colleen Davis, who says, what do you plan to do with this office if elected again? So let's start off with Greg Coverdale, please.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'll try it again. As a landlord, how can you represent the plight of renters, especially those who have lost their homes?
Well,
Thank you.
I kind of think that's out of the purview of the role of state treasurer. The state treasurer's role is really to provide financial planning and oversight to our financial future and to look to help us towards long-term prosperity. In addition to that, there's a $1.6 billion portfolio of cash that the treasurer sits on a board and is partly responsible for managing. So with that being the case, as your next state treasurer, you need someone with the financial experience to make sure that that portfolio is managed with the least amount of risk, and also take into consideration that we get the highest return for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to restate the question? It was, okay, what do you plan to do in this office if elected again?
So I will continue to manage the state's $6.3 billion cash portfolio, which has actually grown under my leadership by 300% return on investment.
Due to the
I
financial
will
government.
also continue. No, that's incorrect.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, but you should not be.
Yes, thank you.
interrupting.
Yeah, could we just have one?
Respectfully, I gave you your time. Thank you so much, Greg. In any case, over the next 4 years, I plan to continue to manage those funds to the stellar performance that we have had over the last 4 years. I also plan to provide retirement security to close the wealth gap for the 150,000 Delaware workers who are not currently offered a 401k through their employers. We passed monumental legislation just a month and a half ago. The governor signed it into law, and I am preparing to get that platform underway to ensure that all people are given the opportunity to prepare for retirement securely, and again, to close the wealth gap.
Thank you. I'd like to stay with the state treasurer candidates for just a moment because since we were talking about cash management, we've seen a lot of volatility in the capital markets recently, stock market going up and down by really hundreds, if not over 1,000. So how does that impact the management of the state's resources? So if you could both address that and what we need to be considering as we are in this volatile period.
Well, first I want to say that one of the reasons that the cash that we have has gone up so significantly is not the result of my opponent's cash management at all, period, full stop. The reason that our cash reserves are so high is because during the pandemic, we got a significant influx of cash, of free money, which also contributed to all of the inflation that we're receiving and experiencing right now. So, let's just be clear. Let's just be clear about that. Now, secondly, as it relates to the cash portfolio, that money is invested in very short-term securities, so that's not going to fluctuate as much with the stock market. There's not a direct correlation with that. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis.
So in our general fund, again, we have $6.3 billion totals, and those funds are not tallied together. We do have American Rescue Plan Act funds that have been brought into the state, and they are not kept at the same tally. Currently, we've been spending those down, as well as the CARES Act funds, to ensure that all of our local governments have the ability to meet the needs of their constituencies and their smaller communities. When it comes to our investments, we do invest in high-grade, high-quality, long-term as well as short-term securities. We ensure that our outlook is not only in the near term, but it's also in the long term, so that we can securely make those investments so that they're not only here for today, they're here for tomorrow and ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the candidates for Attorney General this question. It comes, what is, and I'll try to interpret it as we go along. Where's the line between independent prosecutorial discretion given to line prosecutors and directives passed down the chain of command to either prosecute or not prosecute a case? So I guess, how much influence do you have on individual prosecutors in your office, or are they mostly independent? Let's start off with Kathleen Jennings.
Sure. We have the best prosecutors in the state of Delaware, I would hold them up against any prosecutors in our country. They are first rate, they are passionate, they are dedicated, and they do their job. Their number one priority in our state is to attack gun violence and to prosecute gun offenders. They are also asked each and every day to walk in courtrooms and prosecute child predators, child sex abusers, and child predators, as I said, and they are working hard. What I ask them to do is I ask them to do the right thing. I ask them to do justice. And I ask them to make sure that when they exercise their discretion, they're doing it in ways that protect the public and that honor our democracy and the rights that people have within that democracy. The prosecutor has a unique role in our system, and that is ultimately to do justice.
Thank you. Same question, Julianne Murray.
Okay, and I'm actually going to open with something a little bit different because I do want to say, sitting up here, we can feel the heat and we can feel the passion, but I think it's important that we stay civil and that, that there's no hostility. I do think we each need to have the opportunity to speak, so I ask you, curb your passion a little bit.
Thank you.
Now, in terms of the independent prosecutorial discretion, I actually agree with my opponent. We have some fantastic prosecutors. I actually worked in criminal defense, and people say, how can you become a prosecutor? You can. Yeah, I've been in courtrooms for 10 years. I know how the cases are broken down. It's very easy to step into it. The problem, yes, they have independent discretion. The problem is the message from the top, which is dismissing charges.
Thank you. Moving now back to the candidates for U.S. Representative. We've all been watching Russia and Ukraine, clearly. But what we also recently saw was a meeting between Vladimir Putin and Chairman Xi of China. So the question is going to be, are we concerned about this potential new alliance? What can Congress do to help protect us when we have these other global powers now somewhat aligning? We'll start off with Lee Murphy.
Yes, we should absolutely be concerned about this alliance. It's nothing new. China is backing Russia in their war in Ukraine. China and Russia and evil powers around the world look at us now as weak. We were never weak before. We had a strong military. We were strong economically. Now we are vulnerable. The episode in Afghanistan when 13 U.S. Marines were killed by this administration's lack of an effective foreign policy, that sent a message to the evil powers in this world, and now our freedom's at stake.
Thank you. The same question goes to Cody McNutt. 1 minute, please.
The complete rout of the northern forces in Ukraine, of the Russian forces in Ukraine, and the inability or the inaction of the Chinese when Speaker Pelosi went to Taiwan shows that they are weak. But that does not mean we need to let our guard down. We need to show that we are still strong.
Thank you. Turning now to the candidates for Auditor of Accounts. What would, and I know you addressed this to some degree, but you get to expand on it now. What would you do to ensure that there is no fraud in the distribution of funds from federal programs? So this is very specifically for funds that we receive from the federal program. So let's start off with Lydia York, please.
For federal programs, there's actually an audit program that's prescribed by the federal government. The way to make sure that we're keeping up with that is to make sure that we're keeping up with that, and to make sure that we've got folks that understand how that really works in the office, applying themselves to those rules. So the way we make sure that we're dealing with the potential fraud and abuse is to make sure that our systems are complete, make sure that the systems are properly documented, and then to do the audit of the work that's there.
Thank you very much. Janice Laura.
Thank you. Well, one of the things that It seems that the office is understaffed. The office is budgeted for about 27 employees, and it seems that there are about 22 employees. So one of the things that we would need to look at is why that is and the types of employees that we have. Do you need more CPAs? Do you need more certified fraud examiners? One of my top priorities would be to sit down with the people who are doing the work and get their take on what the tools that they need and the support that they need, the education and training that they need to make sure that they can do the job to ensure that Delaware's taxpayers are represented in that office.
Thank you. Questions to candidates for U.S. Representative? And we'll start off with Cody McNutt. Will you vote in favor of UN Small Arms Trade Treaty? Why or why not? I hope I'm reading that correctly. The Small Arms Trade Treaty.
Unfortunately, I am unfamiliar with this treaty. However,
Did I read that correctly? I don't know if the questioner can let me know. The UN Small Arms Trade Treaty, why or why not? Not familiar with it. That's fine. Okay, Lee Murphy.
And I'm also not familiar with that particular treaty.
Looks like we should all look it up. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. The next question I have is for, I will start off with the candidates for Attorney General, but I'm sure that this will also be something that you will know something about for the representatives here. Defunding the police was a chant that got a lot of attention just a couple of years ago, still continues, of course. The Biden administration has been saying this about funding the police, but with additional, perhaps non-lethal resources. What does appropriately funding the police look like to you? How do we do this appropriately? So let's start out with Julianne Murray, please.
Thank you. And as a starting point, I absolutely defend the police, not defund the police as a starting point. I think that non-lethal resources, I understand it. I think that people that are officers who would agree, actually, that they would choose if they would choose non-lethal means if they could. Okay. But we also have to empower our officers and have our officers that have weapons for their safety. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing that we have to be concerned with is, and someone who has not walked a mile in the shoes of a law enforcement officer does not understand that if you are unarmed, you can get hurt, you can get killed in the line of duty. And that's a sacrifice that I don't want a single law enforcement officer to die on my watch. So I think that, non-lethal, I get it, but I want to make sure that our officers are trained and that they have the lethal means that they need if they needed it.
Thank you. Kathleen Jennings, please.
We need to fund our police as strongly and as forcefully as we can. We need to support them in the very dangerous jobs that they have, as our office has done for decades, and as I have done as a prosecutor for decades. There is a shortage of police officers currently in our country and in our state. We need more police officers on the streets. We need more police officers engaging with the communities that they serve. I have seen it done well. It is done well throughout our state, but there just aren't enough police officers right now. We need more, and we need to support their efforts.
Thank you. Candidates for representative, would you like a shot at that one? What does appropriately funding the police look like to you? Let's start off with Lee Murphy, please.
I mean, we heard the statement that why aren't there enough police currently? Well, who in this audience would want to be a policeman under these current circumstances in this country and in this state? You would almost have to be out of your mind. I admire the police officers, the men and women in blue that protect us every single day. We have to stop demonizing. We have to stop defunding. We have to back our police. We have to give them the tools that they need to protect us in our neighborhoods and our families. Enough with the demonizing and the defunding. We need to stand with our men and women in blue, once and for all. Again.
Mr. McNutt?
One of the big reasons we don't have enough police is because the police we do have are wasting their time prosecuting victimless crimes, patrolling the roads, and collecting revenue. We can divert these resources to much better use their time. And there is an issue. No one wants to be a police officer. They're being demonized. Funding the police will not help people want to be a police officer.
Thank you. I'd like to turn this question to both, once again, representative candidates as well as candidates for Attorney General. And quite frankly, if anyone else on the stage wants to react to this, keeping in mind that your opponent will also have equal time, I'm happy to listen to you, and I think the audience will as well. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, and so the question is, what concrete steps do you think should be done, or would you do, in order to combat anti-Semitism as a political leader? So let's start off with Attorney General right now, and we'll go to Kathleen Jennings first, please.
Thank you. Anti-Semitism is dramatically on the rise. Hate in our country is dramatically on the rise. I advocated for successfully in the legislature, drafted, fought for, and successfully achieved a change to our hate crime statutes that would beef up our ability to prosecute hate crimes in this state. And we have done just that. We created the Division of Civil Rights and Public Trust. One of their prime responsibilities is to investigate and prosecute hate crimes. They have taken several cases to trial. They have prosecuted hate crimes in numbers that no one has ever seen before. We will continue to prioritize this and to fight against the hate that has risen in this country. There is hate directed at people because of who they are. And anti-Semitism is unacceptable.
Thank you. Next response from Julianne Murray, please.
I have no tolerance for hate crimes and for people that are going to pick on a religion, a race, a gender, fill in whatever you want there. We are all Delawareans. We are all Americans. We are all humans. Okay? That is how, as top cop for the state of Delaware, I would treat it. The note that I wrote down is General Assembly. It is, again, the Office of the Attorney General is to enforce the law. So the hate crimes, absolutely going to get prosecuted through the Attorney General's office. The policy end is the General Assembly, but I think that it is very important to continue to advocate for that, and I would assure you that I would do that.
Thank you. And once again, we're going to turn now to the candidates. Mr. McNutt?
Committing a crime with the hatred of that individual as the primary motivation is especially heinous. There is no policy position that could make a crime more illegal. However, just letting these people speak, letting them show their face to you, is the best way to get rid of them.
Mr. Murphy.
Hate has no place in our society, no place in our country. And unfortunately, we have witnessed this over especially the last couple of years here in our country. From the subways in New York to the cities across our country. We have to stop dividing. We have groups, we have individuals that want to divide us, and we've seen that in so many ways. We have to stop the division. We are the United States of America, and if we're going to succeed as the United States of America, we have to be united. Hate has no place.
Thank you. Well, those were the required offices that I mentioned, but I'm offering this now to anyone on the podium here. If there's anyone who would like to comment on it, either about anti-Semitism or, I guess, racial justice in Delaware, you're welcome to do so. Any candidate? Ms. York.
I just want to take the opportunity to say that anti-Semitism and racism and a lot of the other isms walk together, and we need to be on guard against them all the time. Just a little bit of my background. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and the tragedy at Tree of Life affected some of my classmates from high school. So, as I said, the isms very often walk together, and we need to be on guard against all of them, and we need to make sure that if we have laws against them, that we're enforcing them.
Thank you. Janice Laura?
As an attorney and some of the work that I do, one of my most favorite things that I do is I get guardians appointed for basically the poorest and most neediest people in our society. And I always find that to be the most rewarding. It's not something that makes headlines. It's not something that we make a lot of money off of. But I know that at the end of the day, a person is going to be taken care of, have someone to make medical decisions when they're at the end of their life, maybe hold their hand as they pass on. And what I like about that is just that it's human. It's humanity. It's human to human. And that's how I feel about, again, any hate crime or any crime where there is a racism, an ism, as someone said. We have to look to the humanity of the situation and make sure that that is what is in our forefront.
Thank you very much. Last chance, anybody else on that? If not, I can move on. Okay, I'll move on. No?
That's okay.
Okay.
I'll take
Sure.
it.
All right, go ahead.
I think that the first issue is identifying that it's actually happening. I think a lot of folks are avoiding the truth. And the second that I would do as state treasurer and continue to look for opportunities is to help to ensure that our funding is there so that our Attorney General can do the job that she does, so that her prosecutors can continue to fight crime and victimization, and to ensure that we have a workforce that's prepared to protect everyone. As the state treasurer, I also sit on the Board of Pardons. This is a very key perspective to have when we are looking at folks who are coming before us to apologize, to look for resurrection and return to a life before their crimes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We go to Greg Coverdale.
So thank you. So yes, absolutely. All forms of hate crime is horrible. It's very bad. I'm not going to sit up here and try to politicize the role and make it seem that it's more than what it is. The role of state treasurer is a finance job. It's not a job where you're, stepping in and helping out with hate crimes. This is a finance job. This job needs to have someone who has a finance background, who has experience, who I've led individual clients, business clients, nonprofit clients out of recessions in the past, and I intend to lead all Delawareans out of this recession. And this is what the job of state treasurer is about. It's not about helping with hate crime. I'm not the Attorney General. I'm not one of the 62 members of the General Assembly. So I plan to help with our finances. Thank you.
All right, this next question is to the candidates for representative. And it says, since you both agree with the Supreme Court's recent decision in Dobbs, does that mean that that Americans do not have a right to privacy under the Constitution? So let's begin with Lee Murphy on that.
Of course, all Americans have a right guaranteed in the Constitution to privacy.
Okay. Mr. McNutt?
Though it's not explicitly stated in the Constitution, everyone has the right to privacy.
Okay. The next question We'll then go to, well, it's to all the candidates who wishes to go first. So how's that? A grab bag. Whoever raises their hand first, you and your opponent can also join in here. And I think it's a fitting question for tonight. What will you do to increase civility and bipartisanship as an elected official? And that can apply to anyone on this stage here tonight. What will you do to increase civility and bipartisanship as an elected official? Kathleen Jennings, thank you.
So one of the ways that we need to come together is to try to reach consensus on issues that, we represent people of the state of Delaware, and they expect us to get things done. In Delaware, we're actually able to get a lot done because we do reach across the aisle. Every law that I have ever advocated for in the General Assembly, I have worked with both Democrats and Republicans to make it happen. These shouldn't be partisan issues. Public safety should not be a partisan issue. It should be an issue that we are prioritizing for all of the people that we serve, and that requires us to reach across the aisle. I have been able to successfully advocate for dozens of laws that protect public safety, but it has always been on a bipartisan basis, and that's emblematic of the work we do in Delaware.
Thank you. Julianne Murray.
I think you go back to you treat people as you want to be treated. It's something we all learned, and I think that, unfortunately, things have gotten so divided. It is possible to work with people that you disagree with. It's about finding the common ground, and so finding the issues that reach people and will make people unite. So people said to me, most of the people in this room know I ran for governor in 2020. If you're the Attorney General, how are you going to work with the governor? You ran against him, and I said, it'll be easy. This is, first of all, I'm a trial lawyer. We can negotiate. But it's also about knowing the person and engaging and being human. So I think that I, as a public servant, would lead by example, and I would, very emphatically say, leave the politics at the door, let's get to the issue, and let's work together on it.
We've heard from the candidates for Attorney General, but let me just ask any other candidate if they want to jump in here. Civility. Go ahead, sir.
So this is something that I've done through my work on the State Board of Education. I was nominated by Jack Markell, who's a Democratic governor. I was confirmed by a Democratic Senate, and we did a lot of great work on that board. And a lot of times you wouldn't even be able to tell who was a Republican and who was a Democrat by the work that we did. We took it very serious to work with all people on both sides of the aisle. And that's what I'll do as your next state treasurer. I intend to provide financial leadership by working directly with the 62 members of the General Assembly as well as the governor. One of the big concerns that I have is that we continue the budget smoothing that Governor Markell started and Ken Simpler continued. And Mr. Carney, Governor Carney, actually did an executive order on. So I work with all people on all sides of the aisle. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get Colleen Davis, please.
I work with legislators on both sides of the aisle every day. I take their calls and I answer their constituents' concerns every day. In addition to that, we passed monumental legislation in House Bill 205. This was something that was nationwide, not, received well by Republicans. However, when it came to a vote on the Senate floor, I had every single senator, every Republican senator, and every Democrat voted positively for that bill. We worked for months to ensure that we had their voice heard, understood, and considered in that bill. And this platform is a prime example of the ways in which I've been able to work across the aisle and to get everyone's stake.
Thank you very much. And I saw that. Okay. I do see that Mr. Murphy has asked to join in, so please go ahead. You have 1 minute, please. And the question again, what will you do to increase civility and bipartisanship as an elected official?
Yes, I've always been able to work with people, whether it's my civic association or my church. We've always been able to work together to save common problems, just like all of you have in your neighborhoods and in your churches. The number one thing as your congressman that I could do day one to increase civility in this country is to remove the funding for 87,000 IRS agents that will harass small businesses and middle-class Americans. That's one thing that your congressman will do day one.
Thank you. Mr. McNutt? Directly into the microphone, all right? We got this now, right?
He's got it close.
Okay, we got it.
Congress was founded on the principle of compromise. As a candidate running and not a member of either major party, I can compromise with anyone, I can caucus with anyone, I can talk to anyone on either side of the aisle. A vote for me will ensure that Delaware's voice will be a bipartisan one.
Thank you. All right, go ahead. We go to Janice Laura, please.
Civility equals fairness. And one of the roles of the auditor, you need somebody in that position who has a backbone and is going to stand up and is going to be like an umpire and call balls and strikes no matter which team is up to bat. And that's the way that you increase fairness, civility, and bipartisanship, when people see that both parties are being treated equally.
Thank you. Lydia York.
It's important as a moral matter to always see yourself in the person that you're talking to, the person that you're dealing with. And as you want to be treated, you treat that person. So working with people is always a matter of making sure for yourself that you're going to be fair to yourself, and therefore you can be fair to the person that you're working with. I think that it's a matter of purpose, and it's a matter of making sure that what you're working on is an understanding that the person that you're talking to also probably has the same goal in mind. And what we're really trying to work out is how we're going to get there. So I think it's really easy enough to be civil with people and to get the job done.
Thank you very much. I'd like to change the topic here, and I want to bring up, we're heading into fall season, we're heading into hurricane season that's coming up, and I know that we do believe that, I want to know if the candidates, and I'll start off with the candidates here, this is particularly for those candidates for representative, do you believe the extreme weather of the last few years is a result of climate change? And if so, what can Congress do to better prepare our country for a changed environment? And I'll start off with Lee Murphy.
Yeah, as we know that the climate, I learned in my 7th grade science class that my science teacher, the climate has changed since the beginning of time, the beginning of our planet. That's a given. How we deal with it is very important. And in my lifetime in this country, as far as carbon emissions and pollution, we've made great strides. We've made tremendous strides to clean our environment. We're a model, really, for the rest of the world. While other countries like China and India pollute the world and don't abide by any really rules and regulations, we are the example for the world. It will get hot in the summertime and it will get cold in the wintertime. And sometimes we have colder winters than we did the last time. But certainly we have to do everything in our power to protect our environment, and I am 100% for clean air and clean water.
Okay, thank you. And Cody McNutt.
The climate's going to change. It does it every year, and it's going to continue to do it every year after this. However, as far as policies go, when we're encouraging such cleaner policies, we should be not discouraging things we don't want, but encouraging things we do want. That will promote innovation and the free market will find the best way to solve it.
Okay, thank you. Folks, we're almost at closing statements, but I do have one lightning round, and this is going to be a yes or no from all the candidates, just for fun. All right, so here we're going to start off with the Auditor of Accounts and work our way down the line, and here's the question. What is your vote on term limits, yes or no? Term limits, yes or no?
No.
All right, next.
No.
So, for
Yes or no?
I need clarification.
Any term limits
Are
to
you
any
saying
office?
A yes is there should be term limits?
Yes, you're right.
Yes.
Okay.
No. Can I talk about climate change?
You can in your closing, in your closing.
No.
All right, thank you.
No.
All right.
This is for or against term limits?
Yes, yes or no?
No.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. So, just in case you were ever wondering, can you get a politician to answer a question either yes or no? We just proved it. Okay. So I want to thank all the candidates for agreeing to do that and for your responses to the questions. It's now time for your closing statements. And I want to start off, we're going to go in reverse order, and starting off with the Auditor of Accounts. And it goes in the same order that it did for the opening statement. So the first closing statement comes from Janice Laura. Ms. Laura, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you again to our host and to everyone who made this night possible. Have you ever sat at your kitchen table with your checkbook at the end of the month and wonder where your money went? Did you spend it on gas or groceries? Where did you get off track? Was it an emergency car repair or an impulse buy? To tackle any problem, you have to start with answers to the questions: who, what, where, when, and why. This is true for your family budget and for a government budget. As your next state auditor, I will ask the tough questions and bring accountability and transparency back to the equation of how your tax dollars are spent. My opponent has said that good government is boring, but good government is actually exciting and energizing. Good government allows taxpayer dollars to be targeted where there is the most need and will do the most good. As auditor, it will always be my priority to provide the objective analysis needed to create a better Delaware, to ensure that programs and policies are efficient, effective, and data-driven, to put timely information into the hands of stakeholders so that they can make informed decisions about our communities and the state's future. I have the qualifications, leadership experience, and vision to best represent the people in the auditor's office. I'll give you the facts, shine a light on where reforms are needed, and not cave when facing special interest or political pressure. Government needs checks and balances. Delaware's one-party rule is without these safeguards. We shouldn't have to wonder whose interests elected officials serve. We deserve confidence that our tax dollars are being well spent and that our officials are serving our interests and not the interests of themselves or their political party. I'm Janice Laura. I hope I have earned your vote for Delaware's state auditor this November.
Thank you very much. And we go now to Lydia York. You have 2 minutes, please.
I did say that good government is boring. The reason good government is boring is because it's functioning as it's expected. It doesn't have to be exciting when the things that are supposed to be done are being done. And in the case of the auditor's office, things haven't been getting done, so it hasn't really been boring, has it? I want to just thank this evening the Jewish Federation of Delaware, Hadassah, and the congregation of Beth Emeth. I just want you all to know that I'm a CPA, I'm qualified for this job. I attended the Wharton School in the graduate level. I have an MBA, but I also have a law degree from Temple University and an LLM from Temple University in taxation. I've long since suggested that that really means I can read code and regulations, and I understand how they're constructed, what the regulations mean, and to make sure that they're actually enforced. I am running because I want to apply my experience and training to an office that has been neglected for quite some time and needs to be functioning to be a functional part of government in this state. And I want to ask you for your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. We go now to the next closing statement, and it comes from Colleen Davis.
Are we going in the reverse order?
No, same order.
Thank you. As we look forward to the next 4 years, my priorities remain the same. Retirement security and readiness, creating pathways to economic empowerment, promoting a culture of financial excellence. Through our deferred compensation and ABLE programs, we are lifting people up, helping them to prepare for their future, helping children with disabilities with unknown costs. I also am in the midst of standing up the Aspire program, helping foster youth to achieve higher education. I'm also so proud to be implementing our EARNS program, preparing over 150,000 Delaware workers here in our state for retirement, for security and retirement, and for dignity. We're addressing sensitive but important issues in diversity and inclusion within state government. I've served on the African American Task Force, on economic opportunity and health and welfare subcommittees. I'm also looking to continue to safeguard Delaware's AAA rating so that you, as taxpayers, receive the best rates possible for the infrastructure investments in our schools, in our roadways, our bridges, and to ensure that we have appropriate wastewater management. I look forward to continuity and certainty in strong budgeting practices, portfolio investments, and all while leveraging our good standing to get the best rates and to help fund key public service infrastructure. A second term under my leadership will ensure that every Delawarean has a chance to succeed. Every Delawarean has a chance to find financial security, and that truly, every Delawarean has an opportunity to realize their full potential. Please vote for me on November 8th.
Greg Coverdale, you have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. We deserve a qualified professional with a finance background managing our taxpayer dollars. Today, Delaware's taxpayer dollars are managed by a physician's assistant who has a 20-year career. On the edge of an economic downturn, Delawareans need a state treasurer who can properly handle a financial emergency, not a medical one. I'm running to be your next state treasurer because of 3 things: finance, family, and our future. The treasurer manages the state's checking account and also provides financial planning and oversight to help us plan for our future. I will do that with care. Now, my opponent recently mentioned the retirement plan bill. That bill is going to cost all of us, all of you, $3 to $5 million of our taxpayer dollars to have that implemented and overseen. I will do that by hiring a team and going around and meeting with the individual business owners and employees myself to save us that money. In addition to those things, I intend to help improve our schools by empowering educators to implement financial literacy in them. I led the financial literacy task force when I was on the State Board of Education, and I want to finish that work. I also intend to provide some much needed accountability in Dover. In addition to building a 25-year career focused on finance, I'm a Delawarean, a proud dad, small business owner, and the designated certified financial planner to the Delaware National Guard. So I ask, on November 8th, please come out, vote for me. You can find more information at www.friendsofgregcoverdale.com. If you have questions, you can reach out to me personally. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the candidates for Attorney General. The first closing statement comes from Kathleen Jennings.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. Delaware's voters have a clear choice between my experience and my opponents. It's that simple. I've been a prosecutor for decades. I have an 85% conviction rate against gun offenders, and I have taken on hate crimes, child predators, and the gun lobby. My opponent talks tough, but she hasn't prosecuted a single case in her life. And she does not stand up to the gun lobby, indeed, nor to the NRA. At a time when democracy is under attack, I fought to protect our right to vote. My opponent wants to make it harder for Delawareans to vote. At a time when abortion rights are under attack, I have fought relentlessly to protect abortion rights. My opponent, who thinks abortion should be a crime, even in the case of rape. Do you want an AG who prosecuted cases her entire career, or one who can't stand up to the gun lobby? Do you want an AG who has a record of fighting for your voting rights, or one who's fighting to take that away? Do you want an AG who with a record of fighting for abortion rights, or one who wants to put women and doctors in handcuffs? I have the experience and the judgment to make this work and to do this work effectively. That's why I ran 4 years ago, and it's why I'm asking for your support for a second term. Thank you.
Julianne Murray.
Boy, do I wish I had more than 2 minutes. A year ago, almost to the day, I announced my candidacy for Attorney General in front of the Wilmington Police Department. I stated the following priorities: support law enforcement, treat lawbreakers equally, obey the Constitution, prosecute, especially gun crimes, keep politics out of the job, and justice should be blind and nonpartisan. The first letters of each priority spell STOP KJ. Stop, Kathy Jennings. In the past year, I've talked to thousands of Delawareans and have been told my priorities make sense. Why? Because this election is about public safety, crime, and guns, and each of these priorities applies. There's a phrase we've all heard before: actions speak louder than words. You've heard my opponent say all kinds of things tonight, hoping that people won't look at her actions, her failure to prosecute. The fact of the matter is, Delawareans are not safer than they were 4 years ago. Period. Crime is on the rise. Too many charges are getting dropped, and we have critical shortages in law enforcement. Kathy Jennings has said she is making Delaware safe from gun violence and that she has an 85% conviction rate on indicted charges. Words. The fact of the matter is, statistics show 85% of too serious gun charges are dropped. The fact of the matter is that according to Delaware Online Shooting Database, shootings: 43 killed, 146 wounded in 2019, 69 killed, 249 wounded in 2020, 81 killed, 212 wounded in 21, and so far in 22, 26 killed, 119 wounded. That's a total of 219 killed and 726 wounded by guns since my opponent took office. This is not keeping our communities safe. This is an apolitical office that should enforce the law. The election is 54 days from today, and I have been telling people they need to vote like their life depends on it. It does. My name is Julianne Murray, and I'm prepared to deliver safer neighborhoods and streets to Delaware.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more office to hear from, and I do want to ask your indulgence. We're so close to the 9 o'clock hour, and that's what we said that we would be ending. So we do want to, I just want to mention a couple things. First of all, thank you to Laura, our timekeeper. I want to make sure that we do that. Not an easy job, especially tonight, and she has done a wonderful job. And I hope you'll stick around after the final closing statement. I'm going to bring Sylvia Wagman up here for a final goodbye to you. So thank you very much for your indulgence. Let's go now to the candidates for representative in Congress. Our first closing statement from Cody McNutt.
I'd like to thank the Jewish Federation of Delaware for hosting this event and all of you for coming out and lending us your time. I am the candidate for personal liberty and individual freedom. I will fight to ensure that you are in charge of your own lives and that you are the arbiters of your own morality. As the Libertarian candidate, I do not have a party leader breathing down my neck telling me to vote in lockstep with one of the two parties. I can ensure that I am the candidate that will be the candidate of civility and transparency. You will know exactly how I will vote because I will say it. If you want to vote for somebody and not against somebody, you'll vote for me.
Thank you very much. Our final closing statement of the evening comes from Lee Murphy.
Michael, I'd like to thank you for moderating this evening, and I'd like to thank the Jewish Federation of Delaware and Hadassah for hosting us here tonight. I think we've learned a lot here this evening. You think my opponent, though she's not here this evening, was the challenger in this race, not the incumbent. She has lots of ideas, but she's also had years to act, and she has not. She could have voted against Nancy Pelosi just one time. She didn't. She could have spoken up as a recession reared its ugly head. She didn't. She could have voted against trillions in inflationary new spending. She did not. She could have spoken out against the sort of bad foreign policy that got 13 U.S. Marines killed in Afghanistan. She did not. She could have used her soapbox to stand up to a president instead of shirking her own duties as your representative. She didn't. She went along with all of it, and that is her record. She voted with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. If there's one thing that we can agree on, Nancy Pelosi does not have the best interest of Delaware at heart. If you want someone who does, and someone who will help you and your family to a better life right here in Delaware, with lower crime and better schools, vote for me. I'll vote for policies that help small businesses create jobs. I'll vote to make America energy independent again. I'll fight inflation by balancing the federal checkbook just like you have to balance your checkbook. The stakes in this election are high. I'd appreciate your vote. Let's get to work. Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Thank you so much for your time and efforts this evening and for being here. Thank you, all of the attendees, for taking your valuable time to be here. And it's now my pleasure, my final responsibility of the evening, is to bring up Sylvia Wagman for some final comments. Sylvia?
I'll be quite short. On behalf of Hadassah and the Jewish Federation of Delaware, we thank all of our candidates for participating, and to all of you here and to all who were part of the forum on YouTube, thank you for doing your civic duty. Good luck to the candidates, and to everyone, please be sure to vote. Have a good evening and a Shana Tova, a happy, healthy New Year to those in the Jewish community. Good night.
Good job.
Sitting down.
Well done, folks. Well done.
Thanks, Michael.
Take care of yourself, all right? Are those eggs yours?
I was going to use them to make a point, but I didn't.
Thank you, Jenny.